Welcome back to the Mentoring Diaries. I am Tuba, and our today's conversation is actually the one I have been thinking about for a while: mentoring and income growth. Because we talk about mentoring for confidence, leadership, and career direction, but not enough about how mentoring actually impacts earning potential. And that connection is very real. I've seen professionals who are hardworking, capable, and committed, but their income stays the same for years. Not because they lack talent, but because no one helps them connect their ways, their values, visibility, decision to income growth. And sometimes just one mentoring conversation shifts that. And I'm really glad Roma is joining me for this conversation today. Roma, so good to have you today with us. And I would request you if you could share a small brief introduction about yourself to the mentoring journey.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Tuba. So, just a quick introduction about myself. I am currently based in Dubai, originally from Pakistan. And what brought me here was a job offer that I got at one of the leading FMCGs in the region. I have been a corporate professional for almost 8 years now. That's what I started doing right after my graduation. I've been very driven with it. I've always seen myself becoming a CEO of a company one day. So that's how I used to be. But then when I moved to UAE, I was also on the journey of becoming a new mom. So I was expecting my child, and I just realized that my corporate wasn't going to comply with my whole biological life cycle the way that I wanted to do. I realized that a lot of conversations that I had, which were previously all based on my talent, what I brought to the table, whatever expertise or knowledge that I had, kindly just kind of like started shifting towards more about, are you going to be available? Is there going to be a break and you won't be here? Would the company not be getting enough of you? And I just realized that, maybe it's the right time to also see elsewhere in terms of what opportunities are there. I've seen my husband working from home since almost 6 years now, and he's always been after me that Roma, you should try looking into something else, which gives us the location independence that we can travel more. We can, we don't need to have a lot of approvals for just being on a leave. And that's when it really kicked me, and I said, there has to be something more than this. I can't be sitting in my office and dreading about, my child back home, or dreading about how my promotions would look like, or how my performance reviews would look like. And that's the time I really kind of like put a thought into it. And I started exploring opportunities outside of my day-to-day 9 to 5. I became very active on Upwork, and I started applying to a lot of roles. I applied to almost an 80 or 90 roles in a span of 5 to 6 months. And I actually landed a very interesting role, something that was very close to me. And I started working as a career coach. Now, I had a fair experience in, landing jobs, getting interviews, also moving into a completely different region. So I realized there could be some value that I could add to, other professionals. I started doing that. I spent almost 2 years doing that. My clients were based in the US. I was working with a career coaching consultancy, and I was helping them with, career clarity coaching, with their job search, interview preparation, personal branding, all of those things. And that's when I really understood how interesting this field could be for me, because I was actually really enjoying it. So there was a time when I was working 9 to 5 in my day job, and then I was probably working 7 to 11 p.m. for this other job where I was working for the US hours. So that was something very interesting. And what I did then is I quit my 9 to 5 altogether, and I started getting these contractual roles through Upwork, and I was making 6 figures a year, which I wasn't doing in my day-to-day job. So now, as I look forward to it, what I'm doing right now is that I have my own freelance career accelerator program where I help women like myself, professionals who've been burned out. They're looking for something more than a 9 to 5, and they're looking for more independence. That's where I come in, and I help them, land these roles, build an exit plan without having to do everything alone.
Roma, this sounds really fabulous. And trust me, personally, also, I would like to learn more about your accelerator program,
Yeah,
because this
sure.
journey itself is very motivating for anyone. And I'm sure a lot of women, especially who are mom to be or someone who's already a mom, will definitely resonate and would want to have a similar kind of career. So,
Yeah,
Roma, something that I often see, that professionals believe that income growth will happen naturally with time and efforts.
yeah.
So, from your mentoring journey and experience, what's the biggest misconception professionals have about increasing their income?
So I think most of the, and I'm talking with the, the kind of mindset that I had when I was in my 9 to 5, or aspiring 9 to 5er, like a graduate, and I was looking forward to like building a good career there. I think the biggest problem that professionals have is they always rely on the company to kind of appreciate them in terms of promotions, in terms of their income, in terms of maybe another region that they could be shifted to. So all of these things are very much dependent on who you're working with. And when you're in a corporate environment, there's not just your talent that gets you to places, or that gets you your income. There's a lot of other aspects also. The whole, if let's say you've been off, or you've had a lot of career breaks, or you've been having a very, like a very fast kind of a career where you're, just spending 2 years in a company. So all of those things have an impact in terms of how the company sees you. So it's not just the talent. I think the biggest misconception that people have based on all of this is their reliance is too strong on the corporate. When you move out of that, and when you become a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, or you even having a contractual career where you're working with multiple clients at the same time, giving them few hours a week, you realize your income doesn't have any ceiling. It all depends on how many hours you're willing to spend in. And let's say if you started today, you're charging, let's say, $50 per hour. Maybe a year or 2 years from now, you could be charging $70 to $100 per hour, or maybe $200 per hour, depending on what kind of value, or what kind of impact that you're creating. All of this is not possible if you're working in a 9 to 5 or in a corporate. Now, I'm not against those jobs, because those, 8 years spending into those jobs is what got me where I am today. But while I was there, I just never thought about, okay, I want to plan a trip to Thailand. How about this month I just earn double so that I could just, fund my travel? So those kind of things are not possible. So this is the biggest misconception that professionals have, is that if you move out of that, if you move into a more contractual situation, sky's the limit.
So I also believe there's also a lot of risk factor that comes in mind as solo entrepreneur, because you want to leave your comfortable job and move
Yeah.
into a space for people. So I think that's also one of the notion that people generally develop, that
Yeah.
because there's a risk. What if it does not work for me?
Of course, there's a risk. It's not it's going to be super risky. But the thing is, the earlier you take the risk, the better. The world is also kind of changing now. So the way that a lot of companies see employees is not the same. A lot of founder-led companies, they're looking for people who are working 100% remote. They're looking for people, on project basis. They're looking for people who could just come in, work with them for, let's say, 6 months or a year, and then could just add value, be paid, and then they could hop on to the next opportunities. So people are becoming more open with, people working for more than one clients at the same time, but, equally sharing the kind of value that they're supposed to give.
So I would say that an income growth definitely requires different decision. You cannot have the same
Yes.
mindset.
Yes, of course. There's a whole lot of play of your mindset when it comes to increasing your income.
So we need to definitely tap on a different mindset if you want to grow from, your
Yes.
stagnant career to having maybe more on the entrepreneur side.
Yes, of course. Of course.
And that also makes me curious about, what blind spot do you usually see in high potential professional who feel financially stuck?
I think again the blind spot just comes down to, when you're spending, let's say, 8 hours a day in an office, of course you don't have any mental capacity to think about other things. There's hardly any people who'd be sitting in the office and, just looking for new roles, or just applying there. Even if you're looking for new roles, you would always save them. You wouldn't have the time to kind of like, be there and also apply, and apply good, like submit a good application. So when you're spending 8 hours there, and then approximately an hour or two on the roads, because that's another aspect, with whether wherever in the world you are, you're spending a lot of time when it comes to being on the roads. When you're spending about 10 to 11 hours out of home, when you come back, you have this other whole things to do, so you just don't get the time to really think about what you need from life, or how are you going to build the kind of life that you want. So that's the blind spot, which I feel people just kind of like get tangled into, and they're just unable to see that, we're missing out on something. And the transition, let's say, if you want to move out of it, if you want to have something which is more enterprising, which is, which has more growth to it, it requires this transition time, which is going to be very difficult. So you might be working, let's say, 16 hours a day just to make a smooth transition. But once you're out of it, things just get much easier. You get the kind of room and space that you want mentally, physically. You're available to talk to more people. You're available to take on more projects. And I think that is just one thing people are also very scared about. People just don't aren't able to make time for, and they just keep missing out on this because of the whole, busy situation.
So I generally feel, that's what you share is something so real. There's a huge mindset shift that needs to take place because a lot of time I see high performers, they usually assume that their work will speak about themselves,
Yes.
don't want to take that effort. They just feel that, okay, whatever I do is going to speak
Yeah.
for myself. And I feel mentoring often becomes the first space where they start thinking intentionally about visibility and communicating, their values. That connects me to something we hear all the time. Work hard and the results will follow.
Yeah.
People usually have that. I think all of us have grown with that concept
Of
that work
course.
hard and
Yeah.
the results will follow rather than working smart.
Yeah.
So I feel that there's a huge transition that has happened, especially in the last, I would say, 7 to 8 years, and especially post-COVID. We have seen an
Yes.
era wherein we've shifted completely from people going to office to having a part of the digital world. Today, you
Yeah.
are much more easier. It's easier to connect with people.
Hmm.
Look at us. I mean, though we talk about globalization since last more than 30 years, but we actually see that today. It's
Yeah,
so
exactly.
easy to pick up a phone, connect on Zoom, and you can actually connect with people throughout any time zone in the world, at any point of time. So I think digital era is something, the transition that we've seen today has a lot to do with the growth part.
Yes, of course. I mean, it increases your productivity altogether. And I'm speaking about, so of course, I know that, you have a lot of young people that are going to be watching this, but those young people are also going to be in their 30s eventually, right? And let's say some of them actually plan on having a family, or, it just becomes very difficult to kind of make sure that you're having a thriving career and then you're also thriving at home. You have kind of like this work balance. Things are nice, they're smooth, they're sweet. In order to have all of this, it's just very important that you kind of need to shift your entire day into kind of blocks. So let's say if my kids going to the school, I'm going to be spending the hour in the morning just dropping them to school, coming back, and then doing some focus work. After that, maybe I would just get busy with something else, and then I would just go back, pick them up. So I would be dividing my entire day into these work blocks. And that is what kind of like the future of work also talks about. There's been ton of reports, tons of research done on this. You can see research done by the World Economic Forum. You can see research done by Upwork, by Forbes, by McKinsey, and you can see that you know um, these work blocks, which is also called kind of like these shifts that you have throughout the day, which helps you kind of like also have deep focus work through some hours, and then you're also doing some of the home chores, you're looking after your kids, you're doing other things. So given the world that we live in today, it's very difficult to just work from 9 to 5 and then be home and do rest of the other things from the remaining of the time. There are ways that you need to kind of like break down your day in a way that everything is being done, but not exactly in the same continuous 8 hours. So there's going to be some breaks and shifts that you have to kind of make in your day.
So I think flexibility makes it more important, and it gives you a space to think and be more creative. I mean, rather than just
Yes.
letting you have that burnt out space.
Yes, exactly. And you have to be real. At the end of the day, there are people living far away from their offices. There are people that are, probably using public transport. So there's a lot of, drainage that comes with the whole travel. So a lot of people actually thrive when they travel, they go to office and they work from their office desk. That's nice. But in terms of, the reality and where the world is moving and how we're, kind of like digitalizing everything, it's very important that more companies start thinking about how we can help get the right talent, increase their productivity. We need to give them more autonomy, and, they could just be completely flexible and they could still be producing the kind of results that you want.
Great. So I wanted to understand, how do you think a mentor can help a mentee,
Yeah.
from that particular mindset shift, from working hard to working probably more strategically?
What happens now is, so when I graduated and when I was, applying, I think we had a very linear focus, and it was, we would do like tons of applications. We would submit these applications for management trainee programs. There would be a lot of tests. There would be a lot of interviews, and we would be all combined doing it together. So there was a lot of peer help that you would be getting from, your other fellow students. And I think that's the kind of focus that we graduated from with now. But I see that people who are aspiring graduates now, that's not the only way to kind of like get yourself into the workforce. you have so many platforms out there. I think as a mentee, if there's anyone that I'm helping or I'm talking to or I'm advising with their next career strategy, I think it will be that you cannot just focus on the conventional way of, landing jobs, which is you go to the company website, you apply at that platform, you submit the application, you get an interview call, and you just go ahead and you do it. There are ways how you can also increase how you kind of like go about it. So there's Upwork, you continuously look for jobs on Upwork, and you don't even have to graduate. You could start off with like a 3-month project before you even graduate. If you have lesser workload with you, you have less courses in the semester, you could put in some time there, some hours there. You could do a lot of courses and certifications to learn what are the top digital skills these days. And I'm focused on business students, of course. They could see what kind of skills are companies most requiring these days. And then there's a lot of hard skill that also comes into play. So now a lot of companies that are hiring, they're looking for people that are really hands-on with that specific area of expertise that they're looking for. So let's say if I'm hiring for a project manager, and I want them to be well versed with, let's say, this specific project management tool, whether that's ClickUp, for instance, I would want them to either have, some knowledge or some experience in that, or they would have done some kind of courses, certification, or anything, or maybe they worked on another very relevant project management tool, which, from where they could just have their transferable skills and like help me with this specific tool as well. So it's very important that you really pick up, okay, this is how I kind of like see my career. So you just need to be more granular with that. If it's, let's say, project management, or let's say it's sales or marketing, whatever it is, you just really need to niche it down in terms of, if I'm becoming a digital marketer, what aspect of digital marketing do I really want to focus on? Is it email marketing? Is it SEO? Is it AEO or GEO? So, all of these things are like LLMs. That's a whole completely different story at the moment. For the longest time, companies have spent tons of money, their marketing budget, into just being ranked on Google. That's what we call SEO, and then they've done a lot of spending in terms of their paid ads. But interestingly, I was actually on a call with this baby brand, and they were telling me how, in 2025, they spend so much budget into paid ads, and they're not even showing up when people ask for the best formula brand in ChatGPT. So they said, we also need to re-strategize where we put in our money. So we need to see how LLMs find us. Where do we need to be? And that's a completely different shift, right? So within digital marketing or within marketing, sales, whatever it is, you really need to focus down in terms of what is that one area which you want to pick up and build skills in. And then, of course, your interest would grow over time. Maybe when you were graduating, you said, okay, I just want to learn more about AI optimization as part of digital marketing. But maybe 2 years down the lane, you're just like, you know what, I'm not very much interested in it. Let's change it. That's fine. You can always change, you can always optimize. But it's very important that you have to pick up somewhere so that when you're getting the first job, or you're trying to like build a portfolio, it's just more hands-on, it's just more focused. I think that is something which people really need to do now, which was not important, let's say, 10 years ago, but it is kind of becoming important now.
I actually resonated with the point that you said that it was not important 10 years ago. I mean, even if I see my own family for that matter, seeing my own parents or grandparents, I mean, back then, having a graduation or a master itself was a big thing because, again, we lived in a very, I would say, closed world. There was no broader aspect, there was no digital, world. There was nothing. I mean, even having a phone, a telephone
Yeah.
during that time was a big thing. Forget about mobile phones. So I
Yeah.
think we all have grown up from the generation. Today, I have a niece in my house. She's hardly 2 year old, and I see her. She knows how to handle a digital product much more better, I would say, rather than my own mother. So we see that
Yeah.
see that transition, and she's a digital baby. She's grown up
Yeah.
seeing mobile
Of
phones,
course.
iPads, laptop, and so obviously we see that part. I mean, when we were kids, we would go outside and play outdoors, and even when
Yes.
play indoors, it would be like board games,
Hmm.
But today kids want to play on iPads, on phone. They don't
Yeah, of
want to
course. I
actually
mean,
go
that's
out.
Gen Alpha. So, I mean, companies or the hiring teams also need to think about, is Gen Alpha really going to work with them? Are they interested to work with them? So those are the kind of questions that companies really need to ask themselves, because the world is completely changing. This next generation is, you really need to think about what they're looking for in terms of their career.
And I think that's one of the major shift that actually organizations are facing these days. And that's majorly not because of the kind of skills that we're looking out for, but majorly dealing with, the Gen Z.
Yeah.
So that's actually, I think, I keep on meeting a lot of corporates, academicians, and they have this one simple issue that they come up and raise is that we don't know how to deal with Gen Zs. It's
Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
troublesome for us.
Yes, of course.
So I think the simple shift that we talk about, from us going outside and playing outdoors to, a Gen Alpha going and playing, games itself on a digital, maybe an iPad or something, itself shows that we have become so specific, that okay, she just want to play on this. Now, if, for example, if a kid today wants to play on a particular mobile phone or an iPad, you have to obviously now, because the crowd is wanting something like that, so the gaming company also have to be very much up to date with the games,
Yeah.
So
Yes,
that itself is talks about a lot of specialization in an industry. I mean, something
of
like a gaming
course.
industry was never there. I mean, 10 years back also, we never heard about something like gaming. It was just like a start of it. But today that
Hmm.
entire industry is booming, IT, digital. We have chat GPTs today. So we have so many transitions that we've seen. And I think that shift is a very turning point.
Hmm.
And also, I've seen this as a part of a mentoring conversation that when nothing changes externally right away, but the mentee thinking about their career completely changes because you've seen that shift,
Yeah.
from broader concept to being more specific. Like as you mentioned, that if you want to get into digital marketing, you have to be very much clear whether you want to get into what part of digital marketing. You
Yeah,
specialize
of
on
course.
that part. So I think that
Yes.
is very important. And I think once that happens, decision starts changing too, because you're clearer, you have clarity. Okay, this is what I want to do. Maybe 2 years
Yeah.
down the line, once you start working on it, it can change or you might grow on that. It could be either of the way. So from a mentor's perspective, I am curious to understand, which skill do you think like, a mentor should focus on if income growth is the goal?
There's no set list for skills, to be honest. And I think this is actually something that a lot of young people think that there's a set of skills that would get you the income that you're looking for. That's not really true. And that's what I've seen. You could just pick up any skill, honestly. It could be any part of digital marketing. It could be any part of finance, any part of computer scientists, whatever they're doing, whether that's coding or just software development. You could pick up any skill. All you need to do is you need to see, do you have the kind of knowledge or the problem solving skills that the client is looking for. It's not possible that you don't find people who are looking help with the kind of skill that you have. There's going to be tons of people out there. You just need to see, are you reaching out to the right people? Are they able to see you? It's interesting because now that I work as a career coach, I was speaking to this company, and this person was telling me, the founder was telling me that he was looking for a PPC expert. And what they did is he searched he found a profile on LinkedIn, and then the person wasn't available, so he put that profile into ChatGPT and said, hey, show me more profiles like this person. There was like a list of 10, 12 profiles showing up. And that's the question, is your profile showing up when people are searching for, I'm looking for project managers, or I'm looking for people who are experts in Jira, or experts in Trello, whatever, or they know Shopify. So is your profile showing up? So you need to work on whether your profile is optimized or not. Is it something that would show up in LLMs? Are the right people able to find you, whether that's LinkedIn or Upper Profile, whatever? You need to work on those things. That's more important than just spending time in terms of which skill you want to pick up. You could pick up whatever you're interested in, and if you pick up something that you're actually very much interested in, you would thrive. You're gonna go somewhere. You're gonna land somewhere that's going to pay you high, that's going to be mentally peaceful. You would love your job as long as you're doing something that you're interested in. So I think it's less about what skill to pick up. It's more about, are the right people watching you? Are they able to discover you in the right platforms? And also, are you exactly solving the kind of problems that your ideal client profile is looking for?
So I think it's more about creating that visibility for yourself.
Yeah, and also the skill.
So building on your skills and visibility is very important. I mean, not
Yes,
just you
and that
have
could
the
be any
skill.
skill.
So not just that you have the skill, but also putting it forward that you have one and people
Yeah,
are aware about it. So
yeah.
people know that, okay, this is a person that I can reach out to if I need some support.
Yes. And then once you've made your mind, okay, I want to learn more about, let's say, marketing, or I want to learn more about supply chain, what you could do is, once you've made your mind, then you could do a bit of research. Okay, this is the kind of niche or category that I want to upskill myself in. Now, within this, what are the most sought after things that people are looking for? Is it, let's say, digital ads? Is it, let's say, setting up your store on Shopify? Is it, let's say, product sourcing? Is it market research? What exact aspect are people really looking into? And that is something that you could maybe, be more focused upon. But in terms of the larger scale or the larger interest that you have in life, you could be completely open with that.
Okay. So, do you think advice alone can lead to income growth, even if it's correct?
And no, of course not. I mean, there has to be action to it. And a lot of times we're giving advice based on our perspective of life and, of course, our experiences, but everyone's life is not the same. Um, Maybe I'm able to make certain decisions at certain times, but it was just much easier for me. Maybe it's, more difficult for others. So I think advice alone cannot lead you to results. You need to do a lot of trial and error as well. You need to take action. But at the end of the day, it's all about you don't have to take something, you don't have to take this whole big step altogether. As people say, you just need to do 1% every day. So let's say if you were to switch from a job that you're stuck into, you could do 1% every day. And then you would eventually, let's say if you keep doing that for a year, that's compounding over a year, right? Or maybe another year. So that's obviously that's ought to give you the results that you're looking for. But you need to start small, but do it on a daily basis consistently. You can't be, today I had a bad day at work. I'm just going to start looking for jobs elsewhere. And then the second day, your manager praises you and you're just like, well, this is a nice place to work at. So you can't think like that. You have to be very consistent in terms of what you're really looking forward to in terms of your career.
So, I think advice informs and decision leads.
Yes. Yeah, kind of.
Okay. That's where the real shift happens, actually, if you see. Okay, so Roma, can you, from your own mentoring experience, share any experience where you actually saw someone's, shift, like more on the income side, where you saw someone's income shift?
Yes, of course. I could talk about my clients. Before launching my freelance career accelerator program, I was working with clients who were in the corporate looking for another corporate job. So it wasn't about freelancing. It was just optimizing their job search. We had a lot of impact there, of course, with the right documents, with the right personal branding, which means, being more active on your LinkedIn, posting more often, making your LinkedIn more discoverable, and then the whole job search strategy in terms of people don't have the time to really go ahead and search for like tons of jobs. So I think that of course impacted those professionals in terms of their income growth. But then if I talk about the people that I'm working with now, these are women in most cases. And what they're looking at is, let's say they're earning 90K a year in their day job. They're looking to work from home, but then also eventually increase their income. So they would start off with like one client who pays them, let's say 60K a year. And then, 6 months into it or 3 months into it, they will get another client that pays them, let's say 40K a year. And then gradually they keep making more time. They keep optimizing their things. Of course, you can't work with, let's say, 8 clients at the same time and doing the same kind of work that you're doing. I mean, you wouldn't have the time, right? So you also need to kind of like just remove your manual work and bring in more tech there, more digitalization there. That is very much important. These people then start building their systems in the way that would just take up more of their redundant tasks, and then they could make more time for, let's say, getting another client on board. So that is the kind of impact that I see today. These women, once they start working from home, they take kind of like a career an income the income reduction in general. So they would leave their 9 to 5, start working for something that pays them 60% of what they were earning in their day job, and then over a period of 6 to 9 months they would just grow their income because now they're working with an average of 3 clients. So that's the kind of impact that we look.
So there's a lot of shift that you've seen coming in from people's life, from stagnancy to growth as a part of the
Yeah.
growth.
Yes, of course. I wouldn't say that everyone has the same path. I mean, there are people who were just not able to have the kind of results that some other people had. So, of course, it also depends on the market. It also depends on, your experience in general. But But on an average, I mean, if you're really looking into this and you're just very much focused, of course, your income grows with you.
Definitely. I mean, that's such a real mentoring moment that you've shared about because I often feel, external change generally comes from the internal shift in confidence and, and also your identity. You need to have that shift and the willingness to first go ahead with that. Because the
Yeah.
moment there is a shift in your confidence and in your identity, you see that
Yeah.
growth coming in. And sometimes those growth, those identity shift comes from really hard mentoring conversations.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
So, could you share about, one such, conversation when mentor often avoid when income growth is the goal?
I think this is interesting actually. So when it comes to, optimizing or just becoming better at what you're doing, people are not very confident in terms of spending or investing in yourself. A small example for this would be if you're applying for jobs, if you want to apply for 100 jobs on Upwork, on an average, each job requires you to spend 14 connects, and one connect costs about $0.15. So you're looking at somewhere around $200, $300 that will go into just the applications. And you may not hear back. So, but that's investing, right? You need to, in order to reach 100 applications, you need to invest a certain amount of money. Maybe people might not be upfront open to it. Let's talk about other things. There's tons of free courses out there, which is great. I think everyone should kind of like get some courses, get some upskilling done there. But then even when it comes to, just getting any kind of paid help in terms of whether that's advice, whether that's mentorship, whether that's, your CV optimization, people could advise you on your resume, maybe what's really not working out. Because I've seen really talented people who have experience but they're just unable to land the kind of roles that they're really looking forward to. And of course, there has to be some gap. Either that's a gap in their documents, the way they present themselves, maybe their personal branding, or, it could be anything. Maybe they're just not reaching out to the right people at the right time. And that is where it's okay to get paid help. It's okay to kind of invest in yourself, whether that's paid courses, whether that's any kind of a course, whether that's any kind of a certification, mentorship, any program. I think all of these things are very much helpful. And this is what people are not very much open to. And I would suggest it doesn't matter how young or how experienced you are in your career. If it gets you the kind of value that you're looking for, you should go ahead with this.
I think those conversations aren't really easy, but they're often the most transformative ones because growth rarely comes from the comfortable conversations. You're
Yeah.
required to open up. You're required to actually accept, certain things and then work on it. So I think
Yeah.
this becomes very important when people are balancing multiple responsibilities. And how do you think a mentor balance empathy and challenge when guiding working parents or time-constrained professionals?
Yeah, I think in terms of empathy, like, so the clients that I work with, you can't just standardize, you know, of course, you need to have a standard solution out there, but you can't standardize the way that you help them for all. They have different routines. They have different kind of work. They're based in different parts of the world. They have different challenges. So it's not that one thing fits all. You have to really empathize, listen to them, and then maybe even if you have a standard solution, you may want to curate certain parts of your program or certain parts of your service or your mentorship based on where they're kind of like lagging or what kind of problem that they're facing the most so that they can get max value out of it. So I think in terms of empathy, you just need to really I wouldn't say like really get into their shoes, but just try to understand where they're coming from because people have constraints, they have risks, and they're scared of it. It's not very easy to just be like, hey, you know what? I just want to do this and I'm going to do it. That's great if you can, but being able to just do it right away is a privilege. But if you have kids at home or you're the only breadwinner or anything of that sort, then you really need to make sure, are you taking calculated risks? Do you have enough time to also earn and then also spend in these mentorship programs or anything of that sort? But if you're on the right path, I think it could just be very helpful. But in generally, I think you just need to really see for each person and each client what kind of problems they're facing and how you can help them get out of it. Maybe at times, you could, let's say my standard service includes a part of personal branding, let's say. I could do that for them, but maybe they just need more help with the initial career clarity coaching because they're just not sure whether this is the right move to take. Is it going to give them more income? We need to do some market research. Are there enough jobs out there? Are they on the right path? Are there more clients out there? So, all of these things. So you just need to make sure that as part of the whole service, what is that specific area where every client would just need more attention. You may need to do more calls. You may need to really look into what the market is doing and how they can kind of approach it. So I think that's the way.
And I think that balance is also very important because it's not about pushing someone hard, but it's
Yeah.
also about helping people in a way wherein they can grow sustainably and realistically.
Yes.
This has been a very meaningful conversation, Roma. Let's do a quick fire side round. Whatever
Yeah.
comes to your mind. Okay.
Okay.
One belief about money you had to unlearn as a professional.
That money, your income has a ceiling. I had to unlearn it. It doesn't have any.
A habit you see in high earning professionals that others ignore.
I think in high earning professionals, how I can optimize it in a word, it would be taking risks. Yeah.
One career move that looks risky often pays off.
Moving out of 9 to 5.
If a mentee could just do one thing this month to improve earning potential, what should it be?
Oh well, get on to Upwork. Just keep applying as much as you can. It doesn't matter how your proposals are. Do a lot of applications. That could be a really nice learning curve for you.
What's one question professionals should ask themselves before saying yes to a new opportunity?
Is this aligned with my general life goals? Personal, professional, everything. Wherever I see myself in the next year or 2 years, 5 years, is this aligned with that? If it's not, you can probably skip it.
Thank you, Roma, for bringing not just your experience, but your honesty into this. One thing mentoring keeps reminding me is this: income growth is rarely about money. It's about confidence, identity, and better decisions. Mentors don't generally just create success for people, so they kind of help see possibilities they couldn't see. And I think even as you mentioned about your own career experience, and the kind of how you started, from 9 to 5 to up, transitioning into as a career coach itself sets a very big example to this. So this is, for everyone who's listening to us. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, just sit with it for a moment. Change often starts quietly with a single insight. Thank you so much.